The trade war between the world's two biggest economies is continuing to take a bite out of global growth. The International Monetary Fund says the tariff dispute could cut global output by nearly $500 billion. While China's economy is slowing down, it's still expanding at nearly 7% each year. And its pivot towards high-tech manufacturing could transform it into the world's largest and most influential market by 2025. Mobin Nasir reports.
Watching these robots dance, it's easy to assume they're just toys for children. But the company that makes them says they can replace humans in a number of industrial processes, and they're much cheaper than similar products produced by other countries.
The Chinese manufacturing industry has gained significant advantages. The same type of product in France would cost more than $10 million. In China, our product cost is less than $1 million.
It's all part of the Made in China 2025 plan to make the country the world leader in high-tech industries like aerospace equipment, communications, electronic vehicles, and synthetic materials. The government set up 40 national and 48 provincial innovation centers that provide state support to Chinese companies for research and development. It's also set targets for companies like a 35% cut in energy and water consumption and raising research spending to at least 1.7% of sales by 2025. The southeastern city of Shenzhen is the main engine driving China's innovation. 40 years ago, it was a fishing village. Now it has a $400 billion tech economy with head offices of major Chinese firms like drone maker DJI and smartphone maker Huawei.
Shenzhen has a lot of potential. It's catching up with Silicon Valley, although it still needs more time and human resources.
But this strategy puts China in direct competition with the US and Western European economies. Critics say Beijing gives unfair advantages to Chinese companies.
European business is worried that actually this asymmetrical market access leads to political decisions that are against the DNA of European business, free markets.
This alleged protectionism has led to a trade war started by the US. Washington says Beijing must stop state support for its businesses and make laws to protect the rights of foreign companies.
We're also taking long overdue steps to stand up to China's chronic trade abuses. Have to do it. Somebody had to do it. They've been taking out of our country for many years, $500 billion, with a B, billion dollars a year, and somebody had to say no more.
Despite the US backlash, China continues to grow at one of the fastest rates among major economies, and that means it could dethrone the US as the world's largest market as early as 2025. Mobin Nasir, TRT World.
Well, let's get more on this now with Jeffrey Tucker in Great Barrington, Massachusetts. He's the editorial director at the American Institute for Economic Research. Welcome back to Money Talks, Jeffrey. Now, the US-China trade war is officially almost a year old, and it's easy to forget how it all began, isn't it? We heard Donald Trump there say it's about the trade imbalance with China, it's about China's unfair trade practices. But given China's rise, is that the full story?
Well, we all know that Trump has an obsession with the trade deficit, and he really does. In that clip you played, you get a good example of this. You know, he believes that just because there's this accounting difference between imports and exports with a certain country of origin, that therefore China owes the U.S. something. And this is a view that economics just easily refutes. It's just simply not the case. The U.S. is going to have these trade deficits with countries around the world because the U.S. is the dollar reserve currency, and a lot of these statistics are not even trustworthy. And it certainly does not amount to an actual accounting deficit. This is just a mistake. But Trump just persists in it. Now, your question is interesting. Maybe this is all just a pretense to stop China's rise. And I can see a case for that. It seems really true. The U.S. seems very, these days, threatened by the tech empire and the growth and prosperity and the sheer economic growth of China. But there's no reason why the U.S. should be taking this zero-sum outlook on this. The U.S. should be partners with China in building prosperity for the world, as we had been doing until really up until about 18 months ago or something like that. And the costs of this trade war are rising, and the U.S. cannot actually successfully win it. There's no chance.
Interesting. Now, given the fact that the US might be threatened by China's rise, do you think Washington or the Trump administration more specifically has gone about it the right way? Is this tariff war the right way to address this threat from China?
What's striking about tariffs is that, contrary to what you hear from the President of the United States, China is not paying the tariffs. These tariffs are being paid by American importers and American consumers. It operates as a tax. I mean, I can't say that enough. The reason I can't say it enough is that the president says the opposite every single day, and he has no credibility in claiming that China's paying the price. On the other hand, the tariffs have clearly hurt China, in its export markets. But what it's mainly done is incentivize the creation of this Trans-Pacific Partnership Arrangement, which is now more robust than ever. The U.S. trade war has angered our former trade partners all over the world and actually intensified a determination on the part of many countries to figure out a way to continue to get prosperous through cooperation, world cooperation, while excluding the U.S. As a world power. And I had an article at the American Institute for Economic Research the other day where I'm predicting that actually the final long-run result of this might in fact be to dislodge the dollar as the world reserve currency, because you can't both be the world reserve currency and then also pursue an isolationist trade policy. Those are inconsistent goals.
And we also know that China overtook Japan to become the world's second biggest economy back in 2011, and it's been steadily rising ever since. Do you believe that China will eventually overtake the US as the world's #1 economy, and is that necessarily something that's to be feared?
Well, depending on how you run the data, you can see that it might have already happened once you adjust for purchasing power parity. But in real terms, yeah, over the long term, you can forecast it out and see exactly where this is headed. What I'm hearing and seeing from China is a growing commitment to openness of trade, to investment from around the world, to cooperating with everybody in the world that's willing to cooperate. It's truly a tremendously tragic turn that the U.S. decided to take this zero-sum outlook. It's completely unnecessary, and it's almost as if the U.S. government right now is trying to reverse the tide of history, and I just don't see it ever happen. It's just going to create more carnage along the way, and it's really utterly pointless and tragic. The attack on Huawei in particular, I think, was a kind of turning point.
Okay, Jeffrey Tucker, we'll have to leave it there, but it's something that will be going on for many years, I suspect. But thank you again for your time.